Yeah, this is tea time. Yeah, making a difference, one cup at a time. Tea time. So be sure to grab your tea, grab a seat, and tune in to Miss Liz. Tea time. Making a difference, one cup at a time. Tea time, yeah. Tea time.
Well, welcome to Tea Time. It is an honor to have you all here today, this afternoon, this evening, or this morning, wherever you are in the world. So today we're going to get started with an incredible disclaimer because we need a disclaimer on the topic that we will be talking about today. Today we will be talking about the child welfare industry and Tina Fumo's book called Fancy Prisons about the foster care system. So the disclaimer for Miss Liz's Tea Times live show. Miss Liz is going live using StreamYard. Before leaving a comment, please grant StreamYard permission to see your name at StreamYard.com. Please be advised that the content brought forward for any Tea Time shows hosted by Ms. Liz, myself, is always brought forward with good faith, however, may bring forward dialogue and opinions that not represent of my platform. The facts and information are perceived to be accurate at the given time of airing. All Tea Time guests and audience participations are responsible for using their good judgment in taking any action that may relate to the discussion. The content brought forward may include discussions for some where they may be emotionally at risk. It is significant to know that this show is engaging in discussions formed only to offer and inspire awareness and connection, and is not proving to be therapeutical advice. If you have any questions about this disclaimer or the panelist discussion, you may freely contact Ms. Liz, myself, through my email at bookingmissliz@gmail.com. Moving forward, should you choose to voluntarily participate in this show in any aspect, I myself, Ms. Liz, welcomes you. Should you decide that at this time the show is not made for you, I respect that choice and I will see you in a future show. Now, I'm going to introduce an incredible lady, Tina Fumo. I'm going to read her bio and then we're going to get into a deep, heavy discussion on child welfare industry and the foster care system. Please be advised that this show today will be a trigger show. So if it triggers you at all, I ask that you do not tune in and come back for a future show. If you are here to get awareness and to know your rights and to know how the system works, please tune in and leave your comments and questions that you have. And Tina will be able to answer those questions as well. Tina is a grandmother who has overcome the foster care system with her granddaughter. So a little bit on Tina. Tina has been an avid reader all her life, and Fancy Prison is her first book. She continues to fundraise for charities, currently working on a different campaign than the ones mentioned in her book. She lives in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, with her husband, Earl, and they get lots of visits from Bricana. I hope I'm saying that's right. I'll get her to say it when she comes out. For a copy of the latest letter sent to MCFD, go to gentlegiantsacademy.edu or contact her through this website. Gentle Giants is a charity Tina started to try and help distraught parents navigate the court systems in their fight to get their kids back. And you can find her on all social media sites, and I will put them up during our conversation as well. So I'm going to bring Tina into the studio with me today. Welcome, Tina. It's nice to have you here.
Good afternoon, Miss Liz. Wow. Well, I guess I should have told you the proper pronunciation of my name.
I have tongue twisters all the time with names. I suck with names.
Well, it sounds like you have a maritime accent as well. You must be from the East Coast originally. It sounds like you're from Newfoundland.
I have a bunch of mixed things in me.
Accents,
Yeah, I'm from Norway, Ireland. I have some native blood in me. I'm just a mixed old lady here.
Yeah. Well, there is a big Norwegian community up in Northern Ontario, where you are.
Yes, my grandma's
yeah.
my grandma's Norway.
Yeah. No, it's pronounced Fumo. So Tina Fumo, it's Italian. It's like
Fumo.
fumet.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
Fumo.
Like fumet in French, smoke.
Oh.
That's what it means. Yeah, Tina Fumo.
Well, you're a
And
hot lady, aren't you?
I'm glad you said it. I've been tempted a couple of times, but yeah. And the other one that you mispronounced was Bianca. So Bianca
Bianca.
in
I always go with the
Italian.
letters. I don't know what it is with me. Bianca.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful name. I love that name.
But it's not my granddaughter's real name. My daughter did ask me to change it for the book.
Yes.
So yeah, I think on one podcast I let her real name slip, and then I did ask the podcaster to make sure they edited it out. But yeah.
Well, we always want to protect our children, right?
Yes, definitely. Yeah. Which is what I did. In my book, I changed all the names of the children except for one. On the cover of my book is this, if you can see that beautiful little baby there. She's not my granddaughter, but she is someone's granddaughter. Her name is Delana Sullivan, and I dedicated a chapter in my book to her story. It's quite heartbreaking. I mean, I could go into detail, but by the end of it, I'll be crying anyway. But so long story short, she was taken from her mother. She's about 4 months old in that photograph, and she was a very healthy 4-month-old baby. She just had her doctor's appointment, weighing 19 pounds. And one day the social worker showed up on Jamie's doorstep, that's her mother, and she was put into foster care. And 6 days later, that healthy 4-month-old baby was dead after 6 days in foster care. And she weighed 19 pounds at her doctor's appointment, and at the autopsy, she weighed 13 pounds. Wow. So anyway, again, we won't, that's pretty heavy to start off with.
Oh, this is a heavy tea. Everybody has been warned. It is going to be heavy.
And your disclaimer was very honest and authentic because you did warn people that it might be triggering for sure. But you know what, Miss Liz, if we don't talk about this, children are suffering right now in this system. And if we don't talk about this and move through some really uncomfortable situations, the situation's never going to get better. Exactly. Because I think that the reason why it's been able to.
And myself as a child in the foster care systems, I've had good homes and I've had bad homes. Do the systems need to be fixed? Absolutely, and we need to talk about how they target people. If you've been in the system, then you're actually listed. You're red flagged. Your children are red flagged because you've been in the system. So your family is automatically red flagged, and a lot of times people are not who their parents were. We actually are different people, but we're actually red flagged right from the get-go. Whether you have your perfect mom or a perfect dad, you're red flagged, and that's where the systems need to be fixed, right, Tina?
Yeah. Well, I touch on that in my book. The number one thing being birth alerts. I mean, I'm sure that most Canadians don't know about this, but it's ridiculous. I mean, to have that red flag on you when you're in the foster care system, and then you go to the hospital to have a baby, and there's no due diligence at all. It's just automatic. There's a red flag. The child is flagged to be in danger, and they take the child away from you without any assessment at all. This is ridiculous. And it's such a violation of human rights and people's privacy that these government departments are sharing information with each other and basically setting that parent up to fail before they've even had a chance.
I like that you said that, Tina, because it is true, right? They set us up to fail even before we even try. you know. As soon
Mm-hmm.
as we're pregnant, they ask for the due date. When's your baby due? You know, we're going to come
Mm-hmm.
and do an investigation. We're going to come and
Mm-hmm.
make sure you have everything in mind and everything. You know, these are things
Mm-hmm.
that people don't know that happen.
Yeah.
You know,
Well,
and I really
yeah.
wanted to get that out there, Tina.
Yeah. Well, you and I are going to have very different perspectives on this because I wasn't part of the system. I was born and raised with my two parents, and I stayed with my parents until I decided I was old enough to move out on my own. I was never in foster care. I never had anyone call me when I was a parent and put my daughter in foster care. So I'm an educated person. I studied in Toronto. I got my degree in Toronto, and I moved out west many years ago. But I have no drugs, no alcohol. I don't break the law. I'm a tax paying, law abiding citizen who raised my daughter the best that I could, and I still got caught in this system. And it was absolutely shocking for me to learn what happens in the system, how our taxpayer dollars are being spent, and what is happening to innocent children in a system that is broken. And I even start asking, like, can it even be repaired? I mean, yeah, it's overwhelming.
It is. Can it be
Mm-hmm.
repaired? Absolutely. What we need is we need
Mm-hmm.
people to start speaking out. We need to start bringing awareness where the system's broken. You know, I think a lot of people hide in shame and guilt, especially when you get that phone call, oh, CAS is coming or Child Protective Services is
Mm-hmm.
coming. You know, right away we go on defense. Well, we didn't do anything. Why are you coming? You know, like,
Mm-hmm.
what did you hear? You know, and then we have to prove ourselves. And sometimes even
Mm-hmm.
proving ourselves that we aren't that person that this report or this
Mm-hmm.
call was made, you know, and they just make that choice for themselves. Oh, well, I feel that your child is in danger, you know.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Mm-hmm.
which your story, the fancy prison? Why that title for that one?
Oh, so so it's about, I don't know, two or three chapters in, and I'll have to back up a little bit. But Fancy Prison is a name that my daughter called our situation because I dropped my life, and so our story starts, and the book starts off with me driving through a blizzard in March of 2017. My granddaughter had just been born, and there was a tremendous amount of confusion going on around CPS getting called or being involved. And my daughter had given birth to her, she was healthy. Our friend Suzanne was there with my daughter in a doula capacity because my daughter had asked her to be there for the birth of the baby. And then it turned out that Suzanne's experience, not so much as a doula, but then as someone who had worked inside the system, that ended up becoming so much more valuable to us dealing with MCFD down the road. And then I'm going to compare MCFD to, in Ontario, it's CAS, Children's Aid
Yeah.
Society. So in MCFD, that acronym means Ministry of Child and Family Development, and that's kind of the CAS, CPS equivalent in BC, MCFD. So that's what their child protection department is called there.
So do you know what the letters stand for, Tina?
Yeah, Ministry of Child and Family Development. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So then I'm basically driving through this blizzard to get to this small town in BC where my granddaughter was born, and she was about 12 days old when I made this trip to get to her because I wanted answers. Like, I didn't understand what was going on. Plus, I wanted to see my grandbaby too. And then when I got there, they had already very systematically set my daughter up to fail. And even though me being there, again, as a grandmother who I have no criminal record, no drugs, no alcohol, nothing, automatically children are to go to next of kin. They had already systematically decided that that my daughter was a failure and that they would take the baby, because I got there and 2 days later they took her anyway and put her into foster care. We got her back after 27 days, and then the paper bureaucracy still continued, and it took almost a year to get our file closed. But it was ridiculous from start to finish. It was just a bunch of, can I swear on your show, Miss Liz? My book is called Fancy Prison Calling BS on the child welfare industry.
You're calling
So,
bullshit.
Yeah, you got it.
You
okay.
can say it.
I can say bullshit. Okay. Yeah. Well, you said it first, so it's your show. Yeah. So to answer your question, in that bureaucratic bullshit that we had to go through, there were two things: a TCO and a supervision order. The TCO means temporary custody order. So I took temporary custody of my granddaughter, Bianca, temporarily, which was fine. And then a supervision order where I would watch my daughter. And those orders were signed for 3 months, but we had to find another place to live. And it was really nice. It was really expensive. So that's why my life savings went like that in a few months. But my daughter started calling it Fancy Prison because even though it was a really nice place that we had to live in temporarily, she was still sort of in prison because we had to follow these orders. Like, I had temporary custody of her baby, and we had a supervision order over her, which was extremely humiliating for her to be treated like she was a danger to her own child. But that's the way the system works. You're guilty, and you have to go through all of this to prove your innocence. Yeah. So it's
and even when you're innocent,
backward.
You still got to prove that you're innocent. Like, there's a lot of hard situations, where a lot of people have been proven innocent, and 5 years later they come back again.
Yeah.
There's no breaking away from it.
Yeah. Well, I guess we can talk about, is the system fixable? Well, I think there's lots of things maybe that start to need to happen simultaneously to start making changes. But one of the things is, do these cases even belong in court? Because to me, it's really one-sided. They exploit families who are poor and they don't have the education, and they are extremely intimidated by the court process. And it's disingenuous to expect a family to try to prove in court, on paper, how much they love their children and how committed they are. It's impossible. How do you prove love? That's something in your heart. So you can't. It doesn't belong in a court of law, because when you're trying to prove that up against their court procedures, and we have this evidence, and we've put all these nasty words about you on pieces of paper and filed affidavits in front of the judge, and then they win. It's like, well, that's not fair, though. Like, it's just really one-sided. Yeah.
It is. It's one-sided, and it's filling the courtrooms for no reason.
No, it is. Yeah. So the murderers are going free, but a loving family have to go through hell to get back a baby who already belonged to them. Yeah.
Yeah. The justice system needs fixing. We need to fix the justice system. And that's what I mean. Like, we need to bring the awareness, right? And how do we fix these systems? By getting awareness out there, by speaking up and saying, you know what? Our case doesn't need all of this drama. It doesn't need all of this belonging. And we remand the case, and it can go on for years, and then they find an excuse. Oh, well, you didn't do this parenting class, you didn't do that course, you didn't do this right. And but at the end of the day, the people that are taking our children, are they actually investigating them? Are they actually checking their homes? Like they're checking our homes. This is where the system needs to be fixed. There are loving families out there that are being destroyed. Why? Because of rumors, because of gossip. We need to really fix the systems here, and we need to have survivors and people who have lived it, like yourself, Tina, that speak out and say, you know what, it was wrong. The system's broken. We need to fix it. How do we fix it? We need to start sitting down with survivors, people who have lived it and gone through it, in order to fix the system. You're not
Mm-hmm.
fixing anything with a person that goes to school for 5, 6 years and gets a university degree who has no experience on, like you said, showing love. How do you show love?
Yeah, no,
It's in your
yeah,
heart, right?
yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure. And I mean, I've never gone to social work school. I studied business when I went to Ryerson. But a lot of it, and I just found this out recently, a lot of through a friend of mine who had been, and she's like, will not touch social work ever again. Neither will I after this experience. Um, but she said that a lot of what they learn in social work is just that. It's the theory. She said, not once in the years that I studied social work did we ever like have an actual case of the family and the realities of what situations are. And I just found that I couldn't even wrap my head around that, because I'm like, you got to be kidding me. So you go through all these policies in class that, oh, okay, we do in the best interest of the child. Oh, we only take the baby as the last resort. Oh, the baby goes to next of kin. But they don't actually have any examples of how that works or doesn't work in reality. I can't even imagine what kind of a culture shock it is to a social worker who's just graduated, and then they get into this system that I experience where it's like, yeah, they did none of that, and our baby is at stake here. So a social worker who's just spent years and maybe gone into student debt to get her degree, and then the reality is very different. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's extremely confusing, and it's not doing any service to the child. It is not serving in their best interest at all.
Well, exactly, right? And if we don't start speaking out, we're not fixing
Mm-hmm.
anything. We're just saying it's
Mm-hmm.
okay. We're just putting a band-aid on it, you know?
Mm-hmm.
We need more stories like yours, Tina, where,
Mm-hmm.
changing a name in a book and saving a life is a big thing, you know? I'll change all of my kids' names in a book if it gets the story out and the system,
Mm-hmm.
you know? My
Mm-hmm.
biggest thing is when you reach out for help and you ask the services for help because you're a struggling mom, you've been in
Mm-hmm.
domestic violence like myself, and you reach out and you ask for help, you get the services. But after a while, they turn the story around to make it look
Mm-hmm.
like you're the one that had the issues. You're the one who did this. You're the one who did
Yeah.
that. And then they start to brainwash the children, and the children start saying, well, I don't remember my mom ever doing that. But, oh, okay, if you're
Mm-hmm.
telling me that my mom did that, okay, my mom did that. You know,
Oh, whoa.
there's a
Yeah.
lot of that as
Yeah.
well. And
Yeah.
then there's the
Yeah.
systems of, are they actually investigating these homes that these children are going into? Or are
Yeah.
people just signing up and saying, you know what, I want to be a foster parent, but not doing the actual research? How many children, thousands and thousands of children, have been abused in these homes and nothing has been done? This is where the systems need to be fixed, right? And
Mm-hmm.
when you entitled your book Fancy Prison, it's exactly what the child is going through. They're in a prison. They can't get out,
No.
We
No.
they they're being held hostage until the system say it's okay for you to go home or to go and see mom or go see dad or go see grandma.
Mm-hmm.
And they're the ones controlling the child's life. So how
Yeah.
do we break these systems? How do we fix these systems?
Yeah, and I'm sure that the home that the child is living in is far from fancy. I mean, I heard some rumors about foster care homes that would have locks on the fridge so that children couldn't go in there and eat when they're hungry, sort of thing. But I mean, I do touch on, oh geez, there's just so much. I mean, my book is a start. Like, I certainly don't have the answers, because like I said, I think that if we're going to fix the system, and you think that we can, but it has to be a
Oh, it's
multi-pronged
going to take a
approach.
long
Yeah.
time, but it can
Yeah.
be fixed. Anything
Yeah.
can be fixed. It's choices and changes. you know I'm that optimistic woman. I've been a foster child, and my kids were put into foster care, and I know that the system can be fixed if we start speaking up and we start saying, "Hey, let's get some good survivor stories going on here, and let's
Hmm.
actually fix the problem." these moms and dads can give us the resources and tell us, okay, this doesn't work. What you guys are doing, this doesn't work. It actually triggered my child more. It actually triggered me more, you know? And the whole system of the child industry welfare is to get the child back into their actual homes. You know, start working with the parents. Start saying, okay, you're struggling, but how do we help you?
Yeah, but they don't do that though,
No.
Miss Liz. They just
No.
don't. Like that's great to present that policy on paper and present it to the public that this is how we run our ministry and this is how your tax dollars are being spent. So the people out there who are believing this, I am telling you that is not what happens. You have to look behind the curtain because the how much we were lied to and manipulated and intentionally traumatized. Like, for example, the term gaslighting.
Yeah.
All my life, like I probably have been gaslit in the past, but those relationships, my first marriage didn't last. Or if I had friends who were kind of manipulating or gaslighting me, they're not my friends anymore. So it's a testament to me that I lived into my 50s without really knowing gaslighting too well until 2017. And 2017, I can assure you, I started to understand what gaslighting was all about, because that's pretty much how I felt every single moment dealing with MCFD. It was shocking. And this is a ministry that's supposed to be of child and family development. What a joke. It was just a joke.
So you
Sorry.
said that.
Sorry, how do I really feel about it?
No. And this is what I said. Tea Time is an actual awareness-based program. We are not here attacking. We are not here blaming and complaining. We're speaking our truths. We have gone through the systems. We have worked with the systems as parents and as grandparents. We're not saying that we're going to come out and fix the problem. Miss Liz is not here. I don't fix anything, and I don't put band-aids on anything. What I do is I bring awareness. This platform is for awareness. Now, Tina, it took you 27 days. Could you tell the viewers and listeners out there the trauma and triggers and stuff that you went through in those 27 days?
Well, 27 days, I'm sure you're aware, that's a really short time to get the baby back. And when I arrived there, driving through this blizzard, and then I arrived there, and then 2 days later, they took my granddaughter out of my arms and put her into foster care. I recorded that whole meeting where they misled us and tried to set us up to have a fight, like my daughter and I, and then they took her anyway. I recorded it, and I have never been able to listen to that recording. So, Miss Liz, that's one trigger I probably have not, I have not gone down that rabbit hole. I've never been, I still have the tape, but I've just never been able to listen to it. And when I thought maybe I would have to when I wrote the book, but I felt as I was flowing and writing and telling the story, I didn't need to go into that much detail, because it was just really, I mean, it's that moment when they took her away, nothing in my life made sense at all. And I can't even fathom our world right now without her. Like, she is our world. She was worth the fight. But that moment and that 27 days when we were just so scared that, are we going to get her back? Like, what are they doing? I don't understand what's going on. It was just the most unbearable stress and confusion that any human being can endure. So I can't really answer that question except to say it was the longest 27 days of my life, even though it was a short time dealing with CPS. Yeah, 27 days. And then got my baby girls out of BC and then back to Alberta, which is where we reside, Edmonton, Alberta. And that creating that provincial boundary really helped, because there was only so much that they could dig up on me. So by then they'd already sort of dismissed my daughter and set her up to fail. But then they had to sort of systematically go back to the beginning and do everything to set me up to fail and dig for dirt on me. And whereas in my daughter's case, they were able to intimidate her to the point where they coerced a signature out of her, even though in her gut it didn't feel right. They're very, like, again, they're very skilled at gaslighting. Like, I don't know what it is that they learn in social work school, but it sure is to me, it's not in the best interest of the child, because they were really, really good at gaslighting and really skilled at manipulation, because they had me hook, line, and sinker. But fortunately, I didn't sign anything, because by then I didn't trust them. So they sent out forms. I'm like, yeah, okay, there's a couple of things in here. One of them was they decide what's relevant. And then another one is, and a lot of legislation and our charter rights is what's reasonable. Well, those are pretty subjective things, because I'm certainly not deciding what's relevant. You guys are, and it seems that you're writing your own narrative, and what you're deciding is reasonable is not in any way, shape, or form the same thing that I'm deciding what's reasonable. For example, in my daughter's case, the main issue was housing. Like, she was a single mom without very much money, but she loved her baby. But she was in this cramped house that there wasn't enough room, and it was filthy, and she had to share living areas with another family with 4 kids. And so I go into a little more detail in the book about this, but to me, I'm like, my granddaughter's not growing up there. Like, that's ridiculous. So I went to that town with a plan B to help my daughter move. And that's an easy fix. Like, if housing's a problem, then you move, right? But they prevented that from happening, because they're like, no, we want her signature, and we want this and this. And they just wanted to control everything. And I'm like, wait a second. Whose grandchild is this? This is my grandchild. You do not get to dictate the narrative on this. But they honestly thought that they had the right to do just that. And it took me time, my personal time, and my personal money to fight the applications in court until they finally got it through their thick heads that, no, this child doesn't belong to you. She belongs to us, and you will get her over my dead body. I'm sure they wanted to arrange that, but at the end, they were very glad to see the back of me, and the feeling was mutual. I'm like, yeah, I cannot believe, like, in 2017, how much of that year was dominated by these social workers who really had the power of life and death over us, because it would have killed us if we'd lost her. And then how now I will never see them again, like, ever. Like, that, they factored so heavily in our lives then that I will never see them again. And I hope they read my book. I really do, because there are things in my book that were going on that they just would not have had a clue, because they weren't looking. They were just so narrow-minded and so set on what the narrative was to be that they weren't being objective at all.
Well, and that's what I'm saying, right? How do we fix the systems?
Mm-hmm.
How do we bring awareness? By reading books that the survivors are writing, and saying that you guys did it this way, you guys came at me this way, and what was your reasoning behind it? And are they really taking that much for the homes that they're putting our kids in?
No. Yeah, but they don't answer questions. They don't like to be asked questions, and they don't like to be challenged. So I'm like, what kind of crap is this? I mean, it's our tax dollars paying for this, but you're not accountable to the taxpayers over this. I'm sorry, it doesn't work. Or they'll always go, oh no, we can't talk about that case because of the privacy of children. And it's like, well, that's BS. All you have to do, you do what I do. Change the names of the children in the book, and all that. You don't even have to name the gender or define the gender, because all that's relevant is that the child is under 18 years old. So all that's relevant is, like in our case, the baby was taken at 2 weeks old, or children, is the child 1 year old, 2 years old, that's all that's relevant. You don't have to name the child, but they hide behind these secrecy laws, and it's not serving in the best interest of the child. It's serving in their best interest so they can cover their butts about what they're actually doing in that system.
Yeah. So what message did you want to give to to people when you wrote the book?
Well, I think awareness. I mean, your show is perfect because when people like me can get out and speak the truth and tell people that this is your money being spent. So don't just accept these canned, well, we have our reasons kind of thing. No, you have the right to ask questions. And I think in my book throughout it, and I'm very proud that of my writing in this book, but I'm also very proud that I was able to put a voice maybe to where maybe a child or a family going through this, they don't have the skills to articulate it. So I'm really happy to, if I can try to give them hope to understand that you're not alone. And if every single person reading my book can empathize, even for 30 seconds, just imagine if this was your child. And then at the end of my book, ask yourselves, does any of this sound like it's in the best interest of the child? Because that's a subjective decision, a subjective judgment that they're making. And it's not like the parents' idea maybe of what's in the best interest of the child. Because to me, that I saw no evidence of them actually working with the family. One of their policies is they take the child only as a last resort. I saw none of that. To me, that's the first thing that they did. And then they build their case out of the shattered pieces of your life that they intentionally created when they took the child. So yeah, at the end of the book, does this make any sense? And imagine if this was your child. Does this sound like it would be in your child's best interest? And I know, Liz, you and I were talking before about how common sense isn't so common anymore, but
common sense has gone out the window. Anybody that watches Tea Time with Miss Liz, Miss Liz is very straightforward, very blunt, and I am telling you, common sense has gone out the window. We need to bring a little bit of common sense back to the table in order to change any systems, in order to change anything in our lives. We need common sense, and we
need dialogue. I mean, look what happened in the last month with the truckers going to Ottawa, and all. But I mean, our prime minister did not even
open dialogue.
Open dialogue. It's like, okay, fair enough. I understand maybe security, because a lot of them had not so nice flags on their trucks and everything. But fine, send out a different mediation to talk. What's the common ground here? Where can we? But nothing. It was just. And that's, of course, what came to pass was an us and them, hold the line. Well, yeah, because the line's been drawn, it's us and them, and I mean,
a lot of people just get tired, right?
Yeah, well, a lot of people are tired. They are tired. They are frustrated. And now, again, it's the system. I mean, how does any of this make sense? Those truckers who they galvanized this country and solidified this country, they go to Ottawa to challenge the mandates that were being imposed on their trucking industry. And the government solution is, well, we're going to put more mandates on with the Emergency Measures Act. I mean, okay. Okay, you have the bigger hammer, I guess. But anyway, and then he withdraws it. I mean, it's just, it really is. It's
well, it brings it back to what we're talking about, right? People are not asking the questions. People are not getting the answers. They're not having that open dialogue, the open discussion. We don't have communication anymore. It's likes and loves and angry faces and clown faces, but there's nobody talking.
There's and name calling and shaming and labeling. And I'm sorry. How does that help? I mean, probably, obviously, if I was in dialogue with people who are in a position to start remaking policies, I would probably tone down my rhetoric and try to be a lot more diplomatic. But it's a book, and it's my opinion. And last time I checked, you're allowed to voice your opinion. And quite frankly, I don't really disparage the social workers too much in my book. What I do is describe how they acted, and I stick to the facts, and I describe their behavior, and I let the reader come to their own conclusion. Like I said, if this was happening to you and if this was your child, how would you feel, sort of thing. Yeah,
absolutely. And if we don't show the patterns and the cycles that are happening for generations after generations, nothing changes.
Yes.
We really need open communication. And that's what Tea Time is all about. It's opening that dialogue and having that open conversation. And this is where I engage with my guests and have them, So now we're going to get a little lighter, Tina. We're going to lighten it up a little bit. So
okay.
For the viewers and listeners that are watching and that will watch the replay, I know that this topic is a heavy topic, and it is triggering for some people, especially those that are going through the systems right now or are trying to understand the system themselves. So we're going to lighten it up a little bit. So Tina, I'm going to ask you, what is your tea?
Oh, my tea. Okay. Tenacity for the tea, because tenacity is definitely what we had and what helped us in our fight with MCFD. The E would be education. Education. That is so important, to quietly learn, listen, study, educate yourself. And the E would be attitude. Okay, this is not policies and you doing what you're told and how we felt in our hearts. Like I said, it's hard to prove love in court, but you have to have the right attitude as well. So that's my T: tenacity, education, and attitude.
And I like it because you just gave me your life tea as well as you gave me a tea of your situation. Because I can see you as a little kid being tenacity, like right on the get-go, like I'm going to keep going. As a little girl, you were like always doing that. Nope, you're not going to stop me. I'm going to do it.
Well, I'm gonna stop you right there, Miss Liz, because as a little girl, I was actually pretty quiet and I was pretty good. But I definitely had a stubborn streak. And I saw that in my daughter. My daughter was hell on wheels. But now I see that in my granddaughter. And so that stubbornness in children, if channeled, that turns into tenacity when we're adults. And that's not a bad thing. But when you're a child and your child's being stubborn, you think it's a bad thing. Well, no, you got to channel that energy. And,
right? That's stubbornness. Everyone says, Miss Liz, you're stubborn. You know what? Yeah, I'm stubborn. But I've grown to see that my stubbornness has brought me my tenacity as well to continue on. Push on.
I agree.
And that's what I see with you as well, Tina, is I see that tenacity as a little girl, because when people share their teas with me, I actually see the past, the present, and the future. I'm not a fortune teller or anything. I just actually see, as you guys are telling me your words, I actually see these little visions of, this stubborn little kid that was like, you know what, I'm going to prove you wrong. I'm going to do it. I'm quiet, but watch out for me, It's the quiet ones. They say, watch the quiet ones. I was a quiet child. I was seen, but I was not heard, my situation. And education, that's exactly what you're doing right now in the present. Is you're educating people on the systems and you're educating through your book and that, and the attitude of the future, seeing that the future can be changed, and you can bring the awareness. So you actually gave me a really good, strong cup of tea, and this is what tea time is. We're actually spilling tea in ways that people are like, how did she do that? I didn't do anything. You heard Tina. She shared her tea. I didn't know her words before the show. We don't do any of that stuff here. I ask them when I feel that it's time to ask them for their tea. And Tina, I think that's really strong tea. And I like that tea. And every single tea is different on Tea Time. They might use one word or, similar to somebody else, but it's a different tea for each person because our stories are different. You
Yeah,
know, we
they
have
are.
similar pains, but we don't have the same story. And that's where we have to sit back and understand that everyone has a tea to spill, you know? And everybody says tea is gossip. No, look it up. 1952, spill the tea was meant to spread good news. And that's what I do is I spread good news. I spread good awareness. So I do no gossip here. If you want to gossip, you're going to have to try the coffee shop, not tea shop. So, Tina, what would you like to share with the viewers and listeners out there that are listening that might be going through the system right now? Because you have this gentle giant. Could you speak a little bit on that?
No, I'm not going to speak on gentle giants because it would be too much for me to get into. But I want to just speak about something that we were talking about, I think, before we started to go live, but about being a survivor of the foster care system. When my book first came out in September, I was really pleasantly surprised. Well, not pleasantly surprised, but quite surprised that I got a text that week from a girl that I knew who had been in the foster care system. And I never knew this about her because she never shared it. And so again, it's carrying that sort of blame and shame and whatever all of her life. And it kind of explains some of her bad adult behavior. But she said to me, Tina, I was bawling my eyes out reading your book. And I just thought, oh, okay, well, like, I'm glad that you connected with my book and my reading. But you also know that it's okay to cry. Like, it's okay to cry and grieve the loss of that childhood because it's not your fault. Whatever happened to you, your parents were responsible for bringing you up, like for taking care of you until you were old enough to take care of yourself. So I don't know what happened there, but that's whatever did. It's not your fault. Whatever happened to you in foster care, if you were abused or whatever, but that's not your fault. So it's okay to grieve the loss of your childhood, but you have to take steps. What's your next best step from here? Your life starts right here. Okay, so I guess if I were to say anything to people, like, your past is your past. You need to work through that grief. It's okay to cry, but you have to let it go. And the next best step is you now take all of that strength and you can go on from there. So
I like that you said it's okay to cry because
it is.
People are so afraid of crying. Yeah. I cry all the time, and I'm not going to hide it from anybody. I'm a big crybaby. I'll sit there and I'll just have a good old cry and eat my cookies and my tea and drink my tea, and I'll be crying and I'll be like, why am I crying for now? But I know that it's a release. We need to release. The body needs to release.
Yes. It's a pressure valve. That's all it is. And so if people are thinking, oh, I shouldn't cry, why not? Like, even men, okay, men, if you need to go be by yourself and cry, you have to have that pressure valve. I think it's part of your body. You have to have, so whatever you do, as long as it's a healthy way, like, obviously, if you need to relieve stress, don't go reach for drugs or don't go go to the bottom of a bottle. But crying is a healthy way to relieve stress. But as long as you move on, you can't just keep crying because you have to identify those feelings and work through those feelings. And it's okay to cry, but you have to let it go and then move. Like, because for me, it's purging. So you cry and then, okay, got that out. All right, now what am I going to do? So it's just, you can almost have renewed energy, I guess. Yeah.
Well, it's like taking a shower, right? The body refreshes with the water. So the water from the body.
Tears,
You're just letting it out instead of a shower head. You're letting it out in the eyes, right? Yeah, and we were given tears for a reason. Like, let's use them,
Yeah.
We need to express ourselves. We need to say it's okay to cry. It's okay to say we're not okay,
Yeah.
Life is hard, and but we need to reach out and ask for help. Before we wrap up your tea time, Tina, I want to get into what has your story taught you about yourself in general.
I think it's taught me that I'm stronger than I thought I was. Yeah. I guess because you don't know what you can bear, you don't know what you can endure until you're faced with it. And to have come through what we went through, because it was the most unimaginable pain. I'm going to say that again. Like for parents who lose their children in this system, it's like parents having to bury a child who's dead, but they're grieving the loss of a child who is still alive. So there's always going to be questions about where is my child? Are they healthy? Are they being taken care of? Like though, and those thoughts never go away. So it's a different kind of grief, and it's one that's not socially acceptable. Again, because people are like, well, they must have had the reasons. You deserve to have your child taken away. I'm sorry. No, like very, very few people really deserve to not be parents. Okay. I think for the most part, people are good, loving parents who are just screwing up. They're making mistakes, and parenting is a skill. It can be learned. I think most parents, even if they are struggling, say with addiction or whatever, or not, like again, a lot of people who do get caught in the system, it's just because they're not lawyers. I mean, that seems to be what you need to be to navigate the system. But because we were kind of lucky too, like, and I go into a little bit, like we have to wrap it up now, so I don't really have time to get into Gentle Giants, and I don't really have time to get into how many lucky breaks we had, but we didn't give up though. So I mean, if you give up, then you're not going to have any lucky breaks. So the only way to get lucky breaks is you have to keep fighting for your kids. Yeah, because if you don't do it, nobody else will.
Well, I like that you brought it up. I know that we're getting close to wrapping up and everything, but I really want to touch this because you said parents grieve their children, the living grief of kids being put into care. I wrote about this in book 2 in Sacred Hearts Rising called Shining Through Double Grief. I lost my daughter through stillborn from my child molester, and then I lost my other children into the foster care system because of domestic violence. And I grieve my living children. The connection, the parental connection has been broken. It doesn't mean that I don't love my children any less. It just means that the connection was broken. I'm no longer known as mom. I'm no longer looked at as the role model. I'm no longer looked at as the parental person who guides you in life. No matter what age my children were when they went into care, they no longer look at me as that role model. They might say, Mom, I'm proud of you and you are my role model and everything, but they no longer have that parental connection. The connection has been broken, and we do grieve, we do hurt, and I cry every night for my children, and my children are adults now. And my children still to this day do not understand that grief. Until they live it, they will not understand it. And this is where parents who lose their children cannot express this to their children because we don't want to burden our children with our pain, with our grief. They were children. They had no control of the situation. They were put into homes. They were taken or whatever the situation was. But they don't understand that the parent still grieves the loss. It is like burying a live child, and you live with that forever. And for any parent that is out there right now that is going through that situation, I truly understand where the living grief. And it, like you said, Tina, it's they're alive. Be happy they're alive. I get that all the time. People tell me that all the time. Your children are alive. They're safe. They were in good homes. Get over it. Well, you know what? It's hard for me to know that I had to turn to a system to help me that literally turned on me years later. You know, they say that the system is good. For the first 5 years of my kids in care, they were good. The next 10 years, because my kids have been in care for 15 years, they were not. There was a lot of things that were broken. The system started to show their true colors and turned against me. But I still have faith in this system. I still have faith that we can change the system by sharing stories like yours, Tina, by sharing stories like mine and others out there. If we can get enough survivors to start speaking up and saying, hey, the system's broken. Now, I'm not saying that some children shouldn't be put into care. There are some children that are endangered. Those are the ones that need to be taken care of. But also look into the situation of why they're targeting the poverty. They're targeting people who have already been in the system because their parents or their grandparents or whatever generations ago had a system in their home. So you're targeting me now. You know, why are they putting these red flags? How do we change these systems? So I want the viewers and listeners out there that are listening and that will watch the replay to check out Gentle Giants and to reach out to Tina and, you know, just kind of sit and have that understanding of how hard it is as a grandmother, as a parent, you know, that the system needs to be fixed. We need to start fixing the system. And we need to start reaching out to the people who are living it, not just the people that are going to school and being taught that this is the way that it's done. We need to fix the broken patterns and cycles, just like we need to break the broken patterns or cycles of abuse and neglect. You know, we need to fix it. So I want to really thank you, Tina, for joining me today on Tea Time and sharing your story, getting your book out there. For anybody who would like to grab a book, it's on Amazon. I've been putting it up and down during the conversation today with Tina. And I've been putting all of her social media links. So reach out to Tina, you know. And I will see everybody March 5th with a new Tea Time. I have Nehav Lagu coming in from the Netherlands, and she will be speaking on gamification. She's a change maker, a game changer. And I really like the word gamification because we can change the game at any time. We can change the choices that we're making at any time. So I'm going to have her on March 5th. And then I have a few other guests that will be on in March. April will be released on March 20th, and so on and so on. The whole year has been booked for Tea Time. So if you'd like to be a guest, I can slide you in, but I really am tightly booked for the year. I have people coming at me at all angles. And this platform is for awareness. We're not here to try and say, complain and blame and bash people. We're here to bring awareness. We're not here to abuse anybody or take advantage of anybody. All of my guests, I want you to deeply respect them and their stories and giving them the courage to share with me. So Tina, any final words before we wrap up?
No, not really. I guess maybe just one thing too, if because I'm in the process of sort of dismantling the Gentle Giants website and coming up with www.fancyprison.ca, but I'm not there yet. So the better thing to do in the interim is to Google Fancy Prison by Tina Fumo. So be specific though and put my name in there. Tina Fumo, because if you just Google Fancy Prison, you're going to end up with guys.
Oh, you're going to get a lot.
Yeah, you're going to end up with country club prisons. Yeah, and that's not what my book is. It's Fancy Prison, calling BS on the child welfare industry. So yeah, that's all I have to say, Miss Liz, and I thank you for helping raise awareness on this. You know, to me, it's the most important subject because nothing's more important than our children.
Well, thank you again so much. And thank you for sharing and spilling your tea, tenacity, education, and attitude. I love it. It truly is a strong cup of tea. And this is what we do on Tea Time is we just spill the tea. We spill goodness. We spill strong, good tea. So again, if you're watching the replay, please let me know where you're watching so I know where you're tuning in so I can get it out there a little bit more stronger on other platforms than others. I am watching who is tuning in and who is leaving comments in that as well. And don't feel that you can't leave a comment because you're scared that it'll be posted. I won't post it if you don't want it posted. Thank you. And I will see you March 5th for a new Tea Time with Miss Liz. And we will make a difference with what is your tea and making a difference one cup of tea at a time. That's right. It's one cup. The logo's on both sides. And that will be released shortly with the new website as well for Miss Liz's Tea Time. So again, thank you again, Tina, for joining me today. And I will see everybody March 5th at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time.